Hello and welcome again to the Writer Review. This is Eric Writer, and this week we're going to be taking a look back at the 1990 movie titled The Godfather Part III. Now, The Godfather Part III was directed by Francis Ford Coppola. It was produced by Francis Ford Coppola. The script was done by Francis Ford Coppola and Mario Puzo. The score was done by Carmine Coppola. The cinematography was done by Gordon Willis. The editing was done by Barry Malkin, Lisa Fruchtman, and Walter Murch. And the stars of this movie are Al Pacino, Diane Keaton, Talia Shire, Andy Garcia, Joe Mantegna, Bridget Fonda, George Hamilton, and Sofia Coppola. It is a mafia drama movie which runs for, I believe it was around the 3-hour mark, just like all the other previous two Godfather movies. And what are my thoughts about this movie? Okay, I'm not gonna say that this movie was entirely awful. You know, I know it was badly panned, especially by the critics and maybe even some fans alike. But after the success of the first two Godfather franchises, I just didn't simply think it was necessary to make a third sequel. Even director Francis Ford Coppola admitted that the sagas came from parts 1 and 2, and that The Godfather Part 3 was nothing more than a glorified epilogue. You know, ever since Apocalypse Now, Francis Ford Coppola ended up making a whole bunch of really bad movies in the 80s. It's like his aura, I guess you could say, his directing took kind of a plummet. And I guess the key to his financial comebacks was to make a third sequel to The Godfather. I mean, yes, the only purpose to why he made the third installment was because his bravado was going down, plus he was in a financial crunch and was lured in by Paramount to make a third movie as a key to his financial comeback. Sure, he could have resisted the temptation, but he decided to give it the old college try, and so for that, okay, I will give him that credit for trying, putting in the effort. Hey, to me, A for effort is what's hands down deserves an applaud. I just wished that he would have made another flop than to make The Godfather Part 3 personally. At least with the flop, it would have been a more honest movie to make and far less manipulative. The flaws in this movie are definitely by the bundles. Where to begin? We could say that the plot does not have the same bite as its predecessors have in their grasp. Even though it's 2 hours and 42 minutes long, it actually feels a lot longer, and some scenes tend to drag on for a long time. Especially the scenes that take place in Sicily. Michael and Kay's quiet time together should have been axed out entirely. This movie is not a romantic tale, so therefore Coppola, unless he was trying to get more female audience members to see this film, I just felt that there was no need for any kind of dragged out romantic interludes in this story. I mean, in the second movie it was made perfectly clear that Kay did not want another child into his mafia family when she aborted their child, and that Kay was destined to remove Mary and Anthony from any kind of contact with Michael. But now they are trying to, you know, reconcile their differences. Maybe not necessarily remarry, but what Kay did in the second movie cannot be entirely forgiving. Okay, maybe he has decided to go on the straight and narrow and wanted to make his family legit, but she practically made her point across in the sequel. Why is she wanting to go back into his hands in this third installment? She did her time, and I just don't think her work in this movie was really that productive. She probably wasn't really needed in this movie. For those of you who wish to use Sofia Coppola as the main poison to this film, may have crossed the line a bit here. Yes, she was chosen by the Razzies in not just one but two nominations. One for Worst Newcomer, and number two, she was also nominated for Worst Supporting Actress in a Motion Picture. I think that was very, very unfair and not at all nice. That wasn't a nice thing they did. I think that was actually very cruel and very heartless to do such a thing. Yes, I agree that there were far better choices out there. Okay, she was no Katharine Hepburn. And yes, I know that there were other choices who could have played the role of Mary Corleone. Winona Ryder was supposed to take the helm as Mary Corleone, but even I don't think she would have saved this movie from being badly flawed, but maybe she would have been the better choice. I think Sofia Coppola could have been, you know, the accused victim of nepotism because her relative is directing this movie, and she was only just picked as a last-minute replacement because Winona Ryder had other commitments. Sure, Winona Ryder would have been the better choice, but I don't think that if they would have casted Julia Roberts or Winona Ryder for the part of Mary Corleone, they could have made the character all the more compelling. But Mary is a very minor role, so it really would not have made much of a difference. I think it was just purely unjustified that they mistreated Sofia Coppola that way. She was still relatively young in the business. I mean, sure, she became a much better director than she did as an actor. I mean, like I said, her performance was not that great, but I don't think it was that horrifying. So I think people should reconsider their thoughts before playing the blame game or pointing arrows at someone. She did her best. That's all I can say. She wasn't perfect, but I think that people may have stepped over the line in being cruel to her. Another key factor as to why this film is inferior to the other two Godfathers was the absence of Robert Duvall's character of Tom Hagen. Did you know that actually, this is an interesting story I want to point out. Duvall was actually interested in reprising his role, and he demanded Mr. Coppola equal salary like Al Pacino. And I think that if Coppola would have acquiesced to his request, Duvall would have been more than happy to reprise his character role of Tom Hagen. But he was rebuffed at his request and was backed out of the project. And I think he mentioned something that Francis Ford Coppola seemed more interested in Robert Duvall's crab cake recipe than he was, you know, into increasing his salary so he can have $5 million, just like what Al Pacino had. But then again, Al Pacino, he also demanded a higher salary. Pacino actually demanded $7 million to reprise the role of Michael Corleone. But Francis Ford Coppola kind of blackmailed Pacino, saying that if you don't do this, we're gonna do The Godfather with your opening scene at your funeral. So then Pacino shut his mouth and decided to just take the $5 million fine and be done. With that in mind, Coppola edited out that Hagen died and that George Hamilton's character, B.J. Harrison, was cast as the new attorney to the Corleone estate. The only living relative to the Hagen name was his son, Father Andrew Hagen, who became a priest, played by actor John Savage, whose role was just absolutely useless. If there was any movie in this movie that holds any kind of interest, was Andy Garcia's performance as Vincent Mancini, or Vincent Corleone. Vincent is the son of Santino Corleone, Sonny, played by James Caan, who was killed. And he actually went by the last name Mancini, which is his mother's last name, because Santino Corleone married a Lucy Mancini. That's their son. He is, of course, Michael's nephew. The first of the trilogy had young Michael trying to take over the family empire after Sonny and Frito were not eligible for such a task. Now Michael wanted legitimacy within his family's legacy. It would have been better if Vincent became the successor and to bring the family back to conducting illegal tactics, to bring back their old ways again. That's what was the story about. The script certainly does get within those parameters, but the distractions in this movie were just far too abundant. Another note to point out is that the change in Michael is just way too obvious, and at a time can also feel a bit unnatural. After the second film, Michael was a raging force to be reckoned with, but now he's a lot older and more gravely ill. He has severe diabetes. He seemed to have suffered from a diabetic stroke, so he's not as fit as a fiddle as he was in the first two movies. He is now begging for forgiveness for all the things he's done. In fact, in the opening scene, he gets a Medal of Honor for his contributions to the Vatican. I understand that as you get older, you look back and think of all the things you've done. In Michael's case, it looks like he's been resurrected from the first film. Feeling a bit ashamed he's from a mafia family and wants no part of it. But in family honor, he'll attack when his family needs him, when no one else will intervene. He even tried to seek reassurance from the Vatican Church by, donating a large sum of profit from his days as a mafia leader. And even the Catholic Church had also did some conniving backstabbing, especially from high members of the church, including Archbishop Gilday, the financial supervisor, I think his name was Frederick Kensing, and if you can't even turn to the houses of the holy for reassurance, then I guess there really is no trust. So I guess Michael eventually, who wants to try his best to turn away, has to end up with absolutely no choice but to turn back. It seems like every time he wants to let go of his family wants to bring him back again. And I have really no problem with this change, but the process is never clarified due to the lackluster script. It gives me the impression that he's just scared of dying and just wants one last breath of redemption before the coffin closes. However, though, I did like what they did to the script by adding some real events that happened in the Roman Catholic Church during the 70s, when the majority of the film takes place, such things including the banking scandal of the Vatican and the unfortunate and mysterious death of Pope John Paul II after becoming the Pope 33 days before. And like I said, to conclude, this wasn't exactly an awful movie, but if there would have been a much more tighter editing job and a more revised script, The Godfather Part 3 would have probably been a much better film and a good way to close the chapter of the Corleone family. And sure, people have panned this film horribly. It doesn't deserve that much lambasting. However, it was very poorly executed, and it still stands as an inferior film from the other two chapters. If I was to give this movie a scale out of 10, I would have to give it a 6. This ends my writer review. Thank you all for listening in. Please subscribe to my channel if you like. If you want to write a comment, please feel free to do so. Remember, be kind, be courteous. Please don't be rude. And I will be back again with another movie review. So until next time, this is Eric Writer saying, take care of yourselves, and I'll see you around. Goodbye.